Outreach Librarian and Head of Technical Services here at the Tewksbury Public Library. I want to thank the Tewksbury Cultural Council for sponsoring this morning's program. I want to thank the Friends of the Library for providing the very light refreshments. So before you leave, make sure to grab a water and a little Edmonds cookies there, okay? Two for one, okay? Help yourself. If anyone has any cell phones on them, they want to turn those to vibrator silent. The restrooms are down the hall on the right before you get to the front desk, okay? And I'm going to email all of you who have provided their email addresses when you registered. I'm going to email you all a feedback survey afterwards, and you can let me know what you thought of today's program and what you'd like to see for future music and concerts, okay? All right, so this morning, this morning, right? It's 11 o'clock, it's still this morning. So this morning's concert is the Highwaymen Songs and Stories with Matt York. Longtime New England singer-songwriter Matt York will perform the songs of Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson, and Waylon Jennings and tell stories of their careers. The four songwriting legends joined forces in the 1980s to form the country supergroup The Highwaymen. However, prior to that, they each established themselves as stars, and their careers intersected many times in the 1960s. Matt here has twice been nominated as Best Male Artist by the New England Music Awards, and his latest release was named one of the Boston Globe's Best Albums of 2019. So all 20 of us or so, and the thousands that are going to be watching the recording, let's give a big round of applause for Matt.
Hi, folks. Hi there. Thank you for coming. And I went to school not far from here. I went to school in Mass Lowell, so I'm familiar with this area a little bit. And my name is Matt York. I live in Pembroke, Massachusetts, on the South Shore. I grew up in Foxborough, and I spent most of my adult life as a singer-songwriter, traveling around the country and parts of Canada, doing my own music. And but I'd also had a day job for many, many years. And in the fall of 2020, I was laid off from my day job, and 2 weeks later, my wife was laid off from her day job. And we have two wildly expensive teenage daughters, and we were really scrambling on what we were going to do. And I'd always loved the music of the Highwaymen. They'd been big influences on my own songwriting. And so I'd had this idea to just kind of go around, because not only are there just an unlimited amount of great songs by these guys, but they all live these really dynamic lives that I thought that had stories that were worth telling. And so a little over a year ago, probably the summer of 2021, I was doing this, and a guy came up to me and he said, you know, every town and city has cultural council grants, and we think that what you're doing, it would be great. You should apply for one and come to our town. And so I went home to my wife that night and I said, wait, I might not have to work. Like, I might be able to just drive around and like sing Willie Nelson songs to people and make a living. And so I am on pace now to do 180 concerts this year. I have been to every little town in Western Mass, Central Mass, Cape Cod, and everywhere in between. And as far south as Nashville and Knoxville, Tennessee, and as far north as Maine. It's been a real amazing experience. And I used to be a newspaper writer when I was younger, and so I wrote a book about the Highwaymen last winter. And so I'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. The great country musician Marty Stewart once said that there are two kinds of people in this world. There are people who love Johnny Cash's music, and there are those that will. And that has certainly been the case as I've traveled around. And this song is a song that Johnny Cash first did in the 1950s as a solo act, and then in the 1980s when the Highwaymen put out their first album, it was on that album as well. It's called Big River. Knocked on the weeping willow, how to cry, cry, cry. And I showed the clouds how to cover up a clear blue sky. The tears I cried for that woman, they're gonna flood you, Big River.
Hall, Minnesota. And it tore me up every time I heard her draw, southern draw. I heard my dream was back down the street, from Bolton and Davenport. And I followed you, Big River, when you called. Then you took me to St. Louis, later on, down the road. My brother said she's been there, but she's gone, boy, she's gone. I found her trail in Memphis, but she just walked up the block. She raised a few eyebrows and she went on down the lawn. Now won't you bat it down by Baton Rouge River Queen, roll it on. Take that woman on down to New Orleans. Go on, I've had enough, done my blues down in the good. She loves you, Big River, more than me. Now I've taught the weeping willow how to cry, cry, cry. And I showed the clouds how to cover up a clear blue sky. The tears I cried for that one, they're gonna flood you, Big River. And I'm gonna sit right here until I die. And I'm gonna sit right here until I die. And I'm gonna sit right here until I die.
Hi, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you. I was just down in Knoxville, Tennessee about a month ago, and I was playing a concert there, and there was a photographer there, and and she took a gazillion pictures of me playing, and then afterwards the crowd had left, and she came over to me and she said, I don't have a single picture of you singing with your eyes open, and so she said, would you mind getting up on stage and pretending that you're singing? And so I did. And then she sent me the pictures, and every single picture I'm like I just look like ridiculous. So now we have the camera guys here, and I'm trying to be conscious of that, but at the same time I feel ridiculous. So bear with me. I'm going to play a song next by Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson is now 89 years old, and is still going strong. He was just at Great Woods a few months back in September. I saw him last fall down at Farm Aid down in Connecticut, and he had both of his sons with him, one on each side, singing. With one of his son Lucas, sounds exactly like him vocally, so to hear the two of them harmonize together is a really powerful thing. His sister Bobby, who just passed away recently, she was 91 years old. She was sitting there behind him playing piano, and Willie was every 30,000 people singing every single word to every song that Willie was doing. So Willie's doing just okay.
Maybe I didn't love you quite as often as I could have. Maybe I didn't cheat you quite as good as I could. If I made you feel second best, girl, I'm sorry I was blind. You're always on my mind. You're always on my mind. Maybe I didn't hold you all those lonely, lonely times. I guess I never told you that I'm so happy that you're mine. The things I should have said and done, I just never took the time. You're always on my mind. You're always on my mind. Tell me that your sweet love hasn't died. Give me one more chance to keep you satisfied, and I'll keep you satisfied. Little things I should have said and done, I just never took the time. You're always on my mind. You're always on my mind. You're always on my mind. You're always on my mind.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I was once asked what my favorite song of all time was. I was doing some TV person. I was in Kentucky, I think, or I don't know where I was. Somewhere not near here. And the guy asked me what my favorite song was, and I said, Always on My Mind by Willie Nelson. And I had no idea that he hadn't written it. And Elvis Presley actually had a hit song with Always on My Mind 10 years before Willie did. And I had a woman come up to me not long ago at a concert and say that was her first dance at her wedding was Elvis's version of that song. So I find when I go around and I do these concerts that people are less familiar with Waylon Jennings than they are with some of the other members of the Highwaymen. I turned 50 this year, so as a kid I knew Waylon Jennings as the guy who sang the theme song to Dukes of Hazzard and was the narrator of that show, and that was about all I really knew at that age. I knew that I loved The Orange Car, I loved that song, I loved Daisy Duke, and I liked riding around in my BMX and pretending I was those guys. But Waylon Jennings was a huge star. He had 18 number one hits through the years and on the country charts. He also had been the bass player for Buddy Holly and the Crickets and was out on tour with Buddy Holly when the plane crashed and Buddy Holly died. Waylon was supposed to be on that plane with them. He swapped seats with the Big Bopper and ended up taking the bus instead. And some of you may remember the movie, the Buddy Holly story with Gary Busey that came out in the 80s. I was doing this concert and someone came up to me and they were the author of that book, the Buddy Holly story. And he talked about how he had an opportunity to interview Waylon and just kind of the survivor's guilt that Waylon lived with from having not been on the plane that day. But he really brought an element of rock and roll to country music that hadn't existed prior to his arrival in Nashville. And this is a song that he and his longtime collaborator and friend Willie Nelson did together.
A long time forgotten, the dreams are just filled out away. Good life he promised ain't what she's living today. But she never complains of the bad times or the bad things he's done. She just talks about the good times they've had and all the good times to come. She's a good-hearted woman in love with loves him in spite of his ways. She don't understand. Through teardrops and laughter, they'll pass through this world hand in hand. Good-hearted woman, loving a good time man. He likes the bright lights, the night lights, and his good time and friends. And when the party's all over, she'll welcome him back home again. Now, she don't understand him, but she does the best that she can. Good-hearted woman, loving a good time man. She's a good-hearted woman in love with a good time man. She loves him in spite of his wicked ways that she don't understand. Through teardrops and laughter, they'll pass through this world hand in hand. Good-hearted woman, loving a good time man. Good-hearted woman, loving a good time man.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't have any I try to tell dumb stories about whatever town I'm in that somehow involved me musically or whatever. The only one that I have about Tewksbury is I was playing a gig one time in Lowell, and if you see my guitar case up here, you see my name all over. My band was heading to New York City the next day to play. This was before cell phones. It was like the late '90s, and I got in my car and I noticed that someone had taken my guitar by accident. We had the same case, and they'd gone, and my guitar was gone, and the guy had also taken his guitar. So there was no guitars, and I had to leave for New York like early in the morning, and we were desperately trying to find the other band. And the guy lived in Tewksbury, and we were driving around at like 2 in the morning just so I could get my guitar back and head south. The next song I'm going to do is a song by Chris Christopherson. He's about as great a songwriter as I think there is, and this song is a song that he wrote, but that Janis Joplin certainly made famous. Me and Bobby McGee. They dated briefly before Janis passed away. It's a remarkable thing how there are certain singers that, when you hear them sing a song, it's impossible to imagine that anyone else could have written it, right? It just seems like it came from within them, and certainly Janis Joplin has one of those voices. I think Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson also probably would fall in that category. But Chris wrote this song. He had a hit with it as well. Roger Miller also had a hit with this song prior to Janis. And, before I started playing the clubs when I was about 15 years old in Boston, and a guy came up to me when I was a kid, and he said, "If you're gonna cover songs by people, make sure that if you're gonna cover other people's songs, make sure that you sing songs by people that don't have as good a voice as you do." And so I drive around, I do Patsy Cline, I do Janis Joplin. I'm not a great listener.
Busted flat in Baton Rouge, heading for the train, feeling nearly faded as my jeans. Bobby thumbed the diesel down just before the rain took us all the way to New Orleans. I took my harpoon out of my dirty red bandana and I was blowing sad while Bobby sang the blues. With them windshield wipers slapping time, Bobby clapping hands, we finally sang up every song that driving me. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Nothing ain't worth nothing, but it's free. Feeling good was easy, Lord, when Bobby sang the blues. Feeling good was even enough for me. Good enough for me and Bobby. From the coal mines of Kentucky to the California sun, Bobby shared the secrets of my soul. Standing right beside me, Lord, through everything I've done. And every night she kept me from the cold. Ah, somewhere near Salinas, Lord, I let him slip away. Looking for that home, and I hope she'll find. And I trade all my tomorrows for a single yesterday. Holding Bobby's body next to mine. Freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Feeling good, love full. Feeling good was easy, Lord, when Bobby sang. Buddy, that was good enough for me. Good enough for me and Bobby McGee. La da da, la da da, la da 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 da, la da 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 da, Bobby McGee. La da 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 da, la da da da. Oh.
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I want to thank Robert for having me here and the Cultural Council for funding the grant for me to get to come out here. One of the great things about these library programs, and I play a lot of senior centers too, is that there really aren't too many places where musicians can play in the morning at 11 o'clock midweek. and one of the really great things about this thing that I do is that it really doesn't matter what age the listeners are. I can go play a honky-tonk down south to a bunch of drunken 25-year-old kids, and they love this music the same way that folks that grew up listening to it and that are closer in age to these guys are. So, and I think that really speaks volume about how great these songs are and how great these artists were. So, this song is a song by Johnny Cash that I've always loved. It's called "I Got Stripes." On a Monday, I was arrested. On a Tuesday, they locked me in the jail. On a Wednesday, my trial was attested. On a Thursday, they said guilty as the judge's gavel. I got stripes, stripes around my shoulders. I've got chains around my feet. I got stripes, stripes around my shoulders. And them chains, they're about to drag me down. On a Monday, I got my striped breeches. On a Tuesday, I got my ball and chain. On a Wednesday, I'm working digging dishes. On a Thursday, Lord, I beg them not to knock me down again. I got stripes, stripes around my shoulders. I've got chains around my feet. I've got stripes,
stripes around my shoulders, and then chains, they're about to drag me down. On a Monday, my mama came to see me. On a Tuesday, they caught me with a fight. On a Wednesday, I'm down in solitary. On a Thursday, I start on a bread and water bowl of wine. I got stripes around my shoulders. I've got chains around my feet. I've got stripes around my shoulders. And them chains, they're about to drag me down.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Great Johnny Cash. I'm going to do a song next by Merle Haggard. Merle Haggard was not a member of the Highwaymen, but he was about as closely linked to these guys as you could be. And there's a terrific book that came out in the springtime about Merle Haggard's life and his career. And for those of you that might not be familiar, Merle Haggard, essentially from the ages of about 14 to 22 or so, was incarcerated both in juvenile lockups and adult prisons for just a variety of dumb crimes. He wasn't a particularly violent criminal. He wasn't a drug addict. He was the 14-year-old kid that would steal a car, smash it into a tree, get sent to a juvenile lockup, break out of the juvenile lockup, get sent to a more secure one. Eventually, he ended up in San Quentin prison, so there were some issues. And while he was at San Quentin, Johnny Cash came and performed a concert. And Merle was already playing guitar a little bit, writing songs at that point, but he saw Johnny Cash at that concert and said, yeah, when I get out of here, I'll go do that. Merle Haggard went on to have 30 number one hit songs on the country charts. He had more number one hits than any of these four guys in the Highwaymen did. What was interesting is that he was very reverential towards Johnny Cash. He didn't meet him while he was incarcerated, but it's funny in this day and age where you can Google anything about anybody and find out stuff about them. He got out of San Quentin and basically overnight became a country star, and no one realized he just got out of jail. And so he was really conflicted on what he should do about that, and whether he should tell people or whether it was going to ruin his career. And Johnny Cash set up an interview with him, and they did an interview together, and he spoke about it. And because Johnny Cash was very much believed that he should tell exactly what his story was. And like Johnny Cash, Merle Haggard would write a number of songs about folks that had been incarcerated. This song is not one of those songs, but this is a song I've always loved called Swinging Doors.
This old smoke-filled bar is something that I'm not used to. But I gave up my hope to see you satisfied. And I just called to let you know where I'll be living. It's not much, but I feel welcome here inside. But I've got swinging doors, a jukebox, and a bar stool. My new home has a flashing neon sign. Stop by and see me anytime you want to, 'cause I'm always here at home till closing time. I've got everything I need to drive me crazy. I've got everything it takes to lose my mind. And in here the atmosphere's just right for heartache. Thanks to you, I'm always here till closing time. I've got swinging doors, a jukebox, and a bar stool. My new home has a flashing neon sign. Stop by and see me anytime you want to, 'cause I'm always here at home till closing time. Here I'm always here at home till closing time.
Thanks so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. So the Highwaymen made 3 albums together, 1985, 1990, and 1995. They obviously had all been big stars by that point. One of the reasons that the Highwaymen kind of got together was that by the early 1980s, Johnny Cash's career had really faded significantly. So I think from something like between like 1971 and 1985, he had 1 top 10 hit in all those years after having just a gazillion of them prior to that. And so they had this idea to try to pair him and Willie Nelson up together and do a duets album. Willie had done a number of these types of albums. He did one with Merle Haggard and with Ray Price and Waylon Jennings, Farron Young, a bunch of folks. And at that time, Willie was just as big a star as you could be. And so they tried to do some recordings together, but it just didn't mesh. Their voices didn't sync up very well together. And it's funny to think of in hindsight, but they didn't know each other very well. And so the idea was hatched to bring in Chris and bring in Waylon Jennings, who both had relationships with both of these guys. And then they made the Highwaymen album that came out in 1985. That album would immediately go to #1 and be a huge hit. And suddenly they were traveling the world playing giant stadiums in Central Park. This is the first song from the first album, Highwaymen.
I was a highwayman, along the coach roads I did ride, sword and pistol by my side. Many a young maid lost her bottles to my trade. Many a soldier shed his lifeblood on my blade. The bastards hung me in the spring of 25, but I am still alive. I was a sailor, I was blown upon the tide. With the sea I did abide. I sailed around the horns of Mexico. I went aloft and furled the mainsail in a blow. And when the odds broke off, they said that I got killed. But I am living still. I was a dam builder across a river deep and wide, where steel and water did collide. A place called Boulder on the wild Colorado. I slipped and fell into the wet concrete below. They buried me in that great tomb that knows no sound, but I am still around. And I'll always be around and 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 around. I'll fly a starship across the universe divide, and when I reach the other side, I'll find a place to rest my spirit if I can. Perhaps I may become a highwayman again, or I may simply be a single drop of rain, but I will remain. and I'll be back again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
So, if you've seen me before, you probably heard me read off these statistics because I do them every single concert. So, again, for the Highwaymen were Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, and Chris Christopherson. Between the four Highwaymen, there were 13 wives and 27 children. So they were busy guys. And Waylon Jennings was married 4 times with 6 kids. Johnny Cash was married twice with 5 kids. Chris Christopherson was married 3 times with 8 children. And Willie Nelson was married 4 times with 8 children. This song is a song that I've always really loved by Willie Nelson. Yeah, I mentioned earlier that I wrote a book about the Highwaymen, and one of the things that I try to do in the book is talk about kind of the way music has changed and how we kind of digest music now. We don't listen to the radio, or younger people at least don't listen to the radio. They don't, they listen to Spotify, they listen to Apple Music, they find music on TikTok. So it's a very different way that we, people don't listen to full albums the way they did for so many years. But the other thing that I try to talk about in the book is that whenever I do concerts like this, people come up to me and they say, I love the old country music. I love me some George Jones. I love Waylon Jennings. I hate modern country music. And I'm not a fan of modern country music myself. But there's some terrific modern country music that exists. And one of the people that's really, really been amazing at bringing that music to the forefront is Willie Nelson. He has just been really, really great through the years of identifying artists that were influenced by folks like him and people that predated him. And so, for instance, when he was at Great Woods last month, or in September, he had a kid named by the name of Billy Strings there with him. Billy Strings is probably 28 years old at this point. And had he come through town on his own, he'd probably played, maybe 500 people, 1,000 people. But he's an absolute virtuoso bluegrass player. He is headed for stardom. He's just about there. Willie finds folks like that and brings them out on tour with him. And, suddenly they're playing in front of 20,000 people that, most of whom have no idea who he is. And Willie's done that for so many years. And so in the book, I try to kind of act like this human algorithm of trying to connect people to some of the more modern artists, or maybe some of the lesser-known, forgotten artists that ran with these guys, and because there's just so much great music out there. This is a song that Willie and Waylon Jennings did together that I've always really loved, called My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys. I grew up dreaming of being a cowboy, loving the cowboy ways, pursuing the life of my high-riding heroes. I burned up my childhood days. I learned all the rules of a modern-day drifter. Don't you hold on to nothing too long. Just take what you need from the ladies, then leave them with the words of a sad country song. My heroes have always been cowboys, and they still are, it seems. Sadly searching and one stepping back of themselves and their slow-moving dreams. Cowboys especially, with their own brand of misery for being alone too long. You can die from the cold in the arms of a nightmare, knowing well your best days are gone. Picking up hookers instead of my pen, I let the words of my youth fade away. Old worn out saddles and old worn out memories
with no one, no place to stay. My heroes have always been cowboys, and they still are, it seems. Sadly searching and one step back of themselves and their slow-moving dreams. Sadly searching and one step back of themselves and their slow-moving dreams.
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to do a song that I think all of us will know, and that I've always loved Johnny Cash's version of this song, and I see that we have some little ones here. So this is "You Are My Sunshine," and it's funny. My daughter, I have a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old, and my 14-year-old wasn't old enough to work over the summer, so I dragged her around with me all summer long, and she was my bookseller and my CD seller, and she'd come up and sing with me as well. This song is on that CD, and what's the age difference between these guys? Yeah, mine are 22 months apart, so no big deal.
The other night, dear, as I lay sleeping, I dreamed I held you in my arms. When I, oh dear, I was mistaken. Thoughts round my head and I cried. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when the skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. I've always loved you and made you happy, and nothing else could come between. But now you left me to love another. You shattered all my dreams. You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when the skies are gray. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away. Please don't take my sunshine away. Please don't take my sunshine away.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The next song I'm going to do is a song that Willie Nelson wrote for Patsy Cline, called "Crazy." It is the most played song in the history of jukeboxes, is what they say. And I don't know how they came up with that, but sounds right. I mean, it's certainly got to be up there. Willie Nelson wrote this song and was playing it for some friends in Nashville, and one of the friends was Patsy Cline's husband, who was also her manager. And he said, "We got to go home and wake up Patsy and play this song for her. She needs to sing this." And so they went home and they woke her up, and she didn't like it at first. She didn't think it was Willie kind of has a unique style of singing and sings behind the beat and things like that, and she wasn't sure it was a good match for her. But it worked out pretty good for them, and I laughed because I had a woman come up to me maybe a month ago, and she said, "I want to buy a CD." She handed me money. She said, "I want to buy a book." She handed me more money. And she said, "I really didn't like your version of Crazy." So I took her money, but crazy. I'm crazy for feeling so lonely. Crazy.
feeling so blue. I knew you'd love me as long as you wanted, and then someday you'd leave me for somebody new. Worry, why do I let myself worry? Wondering what in the world did I do? Crazy for thinking that my love could hold you. Crazy for crying, crazy for trying, but I'm crazy for loving you. Crazy for crying, crazy for trying, I'm crazy for loving you. Thank you very much. It's funny, I did a concert just today, and I didn't realize it till I was driving home, but I didn't do like any of Johnny Cash's famous songs, or I didn't do Ring of Fire or Fool's Prison. Certainly when I go around and I do these concerts, people are most interested in Johnny Cash, so that's who people talk to me about most afterwards and stuff. And you know, it's in a lot of the towns where I've already done the Highwaymen, I'm in the process of going back to those towns and doing an hour just dedicated to Johnny Cash himself. And there's just an unlimited amount of songs and stories on him. This is Ring of Fire. Love is a burning thing, and it makes a fiery ring, bound by wild desire. I fell into a ring of fire. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, down, down. The flames went higher. It burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire, the ring of fire. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, down, down. The flames went higher, and it burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire, the ring of fire. The taste of love is sweet when hearts like ours meet. I fell for you like a child. Oh, but the fire went wild. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, down, down. The flames went higher, and it burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire, the ring of fire. I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, down. The flames went higher, and it burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire, the ring of fire. And it burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire, the ring of fire. The ring of fire, the ring of fire. The ring of fire. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to do a couple more for you.
I wanted to, I always read this quote from Willie Nelson, and the other thing I want to mention too, if you are, I'm everywhere, if you're like, this wasn't that bad and it was free and that you could do it again, feel free to take a business card or sign up for my mailing list, and I send out an email once a month on where I'm going to be. Like I said, I'm doing a lot of Johnny Cash concerts in 2023. I'm also doing one that is the history of classic country music, which is just similar to this, but just focuses on some of the other kind of iconic country stars. I have CDs of me doing the Highwaymen songs. CDs are $10. It sounds exactly like this, except it's just flawless. I mean, absolutely flawless. And and I have the book. People love the book. So if you're interested in the book is $20. So any of those things, come see me afterwards. Willie Nelson said, "We are the same. There is no difference anywhere in the world. People are people. They laugh, cry, feel, and love. And music seems to be the common denomination that brings us all together. Music cuts through all boundaries and goes right to the soul." And I was laughing a couple months ago when school was starting back up, and one of my daughters came downstairs and she had like this crop top shirt on that said Willie Nelson, and I said, "Where'd you get that?" And she's like, "Oh no, at the store at the mall. It was a girls' clothing store, and they have a whole line of Willie Nelson clothes." I'm like, "What?" And she pulled it up and she showed me they had like belt buckles and sweatshirts and all this different stuff. I was like, he's 89 years old. And it's amazing to me, just the power that Willie has had through the years, and just I remember going to see Willie for the first time at Lowell Memorial Auditorium, maybe probably 1999, 2000, somewhere around there. And I remember that there was a crew of Hell's Angels sitting in front of my bass player and I, and I'll never forget, like, Willie was playing Always on My Mind or Crazy or one of his ballads, and all the Hell's Angels started to put their arms around their woman. And then they started to get up and they started like dancing in the aisles with their, and I remember my bass player turning to me, he's like, "I didn't know Hell's Angels danced." And and it's I think that Willie is the only person that'll ever be able to say that he wrote a song for Patsy Cline, but that he also did a duet with Snoop Dogg, and anytime you see him live, it's just amazing to me, at least, how much of an impact he's had on so many folks. I hope Willie lives to be like 300 years old, but if whenever he does pass away, I will probably be doing like 3 years straight of just Willie Nelson songs and stories, because he is just my all-time favorite. This is On the Road Again. On the road again, I just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I live is making music with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, going places I've never been, seeing things that I may never see again. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, like a band of gypsies, and we go down the highway. We're the best of friends, insisting that the world keep turning our way. And our way is on the road again. But I just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, like a band of gypsies, and we go down the highway. We're the best of friends, insisting that the world keep turning our way. And our way is on the road again.
But I just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends. I can't wait to get on the road again. I can't wait to get on the road again. I can't wait to get on the road again.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. I'm going to close with Folsom Prison. Thank you again to the library and the Cultural Council for having me. Thank you for coming down to listen. And this is Johnny Cash.
I hail a train coming. It's rolling round the bend. And I ain't seen the sunshine since, well, I don't know when. Well, I'm stuck in Folsom Prison. Time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps on the road, on down to San Antone. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy, don't ever play with guns. But I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. And when I hear that whistle blow, I hang my head and I cry. But I bet there's rich folks see from fancy dining cars. They're probably drinking coffee, smoking big cigars. Well, I know I haven't come. I know I can't be free. Oh, but those people keep on doing Maxwell told you. Well, if they freed me from this prison, and if that railroad train goes by, I guess I'm moving on a little farther down the line. Far from Folsom Prison, that's where I won't stay. Oh, I'll let that lonesome whistle blow